What's up, everybody, and welcome back for another episode of the Fancast Live Podcast. I got my boy Jamie Hollywood Barrett on with me to talk some New York Giants football. As you guys know, Giants lose a big one yesterday to the Arizona Cardinals, 26-7, a game that many of us Giants fans expected the Giants to win. Being that the Cardinals were struggling, what they lose, 3 or 4 or 4 of the last 5, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, they're on a 3-game skid. Yeah.
And they found a way to beat the Giants yesterday. Jamie, this is a Giants team that I think reverted back to their 0-5.
Yeah.
You know, the first 5 weeks of the season, to where Daniel Jones was fumbling the ball a lot.
That was tough.
The defense was doing their part, but the offense wasn't keeping the defense off the field. A lot of things about this game that really didn't go well for the Giants. Not a whole lot of yards on the offensive side. There's 3 things I want to point out real quick, and I want your thoughts on it. First and foremost, the turnover ratio. Giants were a -3. Daniel Jones was sacked 6 times, 8 total, 11 quarterback hits. They only had 1 quarterback sack. It was Tomlinson, I believe, and 4 QB hits. Average starting position on the field for the Giants was their own 18. Arizona's was their own 47. That's huge. I don't know what's going on with special teams lately. We'll hit on that.
Weird.
Hassan Reddick, we have to mention his name. 5 sacks, breaking the Cardinals' franchise record. That was 4.5, set back in 1983, I think it was. Time of possession, 22 minutes plus for the Giants, 37 plus for the Cardinals. 10 first downs for the Giants, 22 for the Cardinals. Listen, all across the board, the Giants look like shit, and I want your take on this. I mean, let me hear your take.
Yeah, Giancarlo, great to be with you as always. It was a very tough game to watch for a Giants fan because you're just coming off what could have been probably one of the best wins in the history of the franchise the last 5 years. I mean, when can you remember, other than the McAdoo season, I guess, as an anomaly, but there's never been a big game that we won. So coming off of that game where they played greasy football, established the run, they were kind of molding to Joe Judge's identity, which is smash mouth football, play action pass, getting really everybody involved on defense, making plays and, eating up a lot of clock. And it was the exact opposite because you got to give Arizona credit. They came in, they saw exactly what Seattle was doing. They do run similar types of offenses, and they were able to make adjustments and really move DeAndre Hopkins around, and they gained a lot of yards on us. And what kills you is the Jones fumble. That moment, I think, sticks out. It's almost like your bruise is healed, or you just went to the doctor, you fixed your arm, and then it just aches again. That's how that felt. That was a stinger. Right there. That really stung because Jones was we wanted him back. I mean, fans wanted him back. We thought that this was going to be, we got Jones. We're going to do zone reads. He's going to be effective. We're going to continue to roll. Wow. I mean, what
do you think? What do you think was the? What do you blame it on most? Do you think that Daniel Jones? Well, what I'm trying to say is, was it Daniel Jones' mental? Thinking about, don't run out of the pocket because my hamstring, I might pop my hamstring again.
He's not 100%.
Or was he just not, 100% healthy or whatever the case may be, or maybe his coaches told him to stay in the pocket. I mean,
there's miscommunication.
If he wasn't healthy to play, why was Daniel Jones on the field to begin with?
I don't know. That's a good question. And Daniel Jones has to be responsible. Here's a kid. He stays in the pocket too long. He's not afraid to take hits. He's running way too fast because he thinks there's guys behind him and falls. He just is a little bit too fast sometimes. I think he's a little bit too anxious, a little bit too aggressive, a little bit too naive. And, he cares about winning and he wants to win, but sometimes he tries to do things that are way over his head and he gets in trouble. And there's a communication breakdown that Judge has to correct. And I think Joe Judge, knowing how good of a coach he is, I think he's going to correct it. We talked about this before, calling plays. Jones is obviously switching play calls and doing something else, and he can't be switching to plays he can't, execute. I mean, there's no question about it. he wasn't 100% with his legs, because we're accustomed to seeing Jones 9-10 runs a game, 70-80 yards, breaking one off for 25, making it second and manageable and eating up clock. And he was completely could not do that. And once the Cardinals figured that out, they switched up their game plan and crushed them. So Jason Garrett has to do a job, I would say, of making sure that Jones doesn't check out of all these plays. I mean, we'll probably get into some of those plays, but you might have the stats. Way too many plays where he was just maybe going off of the run or trying to do something fancy in the shotgun when, that's not the type of team that we've been winning with. You got to stick with it.
Well, it was obvious that Daniel Jones wasn't running out of the pocket. He just wasn't himself, obviously. He didn't make it a rushing attempt this whole game. This is the first time this season that Daniel Jones did not run the ball. And it's quite evident that either he was still hurt or, in the back of the mind, he's thinking he doesn't want to pop this hamstring. He did limp around at the end of the game when he was taken out for Colt McCoy. So maybe there's a possibility that he might have re-aggravated that injury. Maybe
he's got to be responsible with that, though, Giancarlo. He's always trying to stay in, do too much, be a hero. He's got to say, look, I'm hurt, I can't play, and he's actually doing the team a disservice, honestly.
Well, the other thing that did him a lot of disservice, or the Giants' disservice, is the fact that he audibled out, and we spoke about this many a times. There was at least 8, 9, maybe 10 plays where he audibled, and I think he was like over on all those audibles to the point where it cost the Giants yardage, it cost the Giants first downs. There's a lot of plays that in this game, and in particular late in the game on the 3rd and 1, when we spoke about that just before coming on. The 3rd and 1, all they needed was 1 yard to get a first down to keep that drive going. I know this game is, I don't know, at that point it was 20-7. It might have been even closer to that. It might have been closer.
I think it was around that score. It was very much in the game. I mean, the Giants just scored a touchdown. Defense makes a stop, and you're in this game.
Right. And instead, Daniel Jones lobs the ball up for, I think it was Sterling Shepard, and it was a busted play right from the get-go. I mean, it wasn't even close. I mean, had the play been close, but the play calling, if Daniel Jones didn't audible on that play,
that's a bad call.
And that was a bad call, and I think Joe Judge even said that was the play call on that play. I got to question your mentality on that. Like, why the fuck are you calling that play on a 3rd and 1 when you're down, 13 points?
Well, seriously, the play call works when you have Pat Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott, guys that, have just as a very comfortable rapport with their receivers. I mean, NFL quarterbacks make that play because when you have 3rd and 1 and the Giants are trying to establish a run again, you're going to have one-on-one coverage. Now, the problem for the Giants is we don't have a guy that can jump up and get a ball except for Evan Engram. And sometimes he disappears some games. Let's be honest, he does. And he's frustrating for us Giants fans. But other than him, no one really gets open. Sterling Shepard's been banged up with injuries. He's a slot guy. And if you have him one-on-one matchup against Kirkpatrick, who's one of the better corners in the league, that's not a matchup in that spot that Daniel Jones can take. I don't know because when you think about analytics, that is a low probability right there. And to me, it looks like Daniel Jones is trying to check out of a play. I'm confident in myself. I'm going to make a throw. But, man, you need first down. You need to keep your defense off the field. And listen, let's just say you go for it on 3rd down and then it's not there. You got another play. At least you can try it then, and maybe it does convert. Maybe it doesn't. I just don't know. You have to convert on that play, and it has to be a perfect throw with the wide receiver corner matchup, and that was just not there. So that was a total breakdown with Garrett and then Jones, calling out of the play and then not executing. That's a big play. We can't have those plays moving forward if we're going to have any chance to move forward here.
This is a Giants team that hasn't scored in the first half of the second week in a row. This is the first time, I think, this season where they went 2 games straight without scoring in the first half. That, to me, is a problem. I mean, I don't even know how many yards. I think they had 100. I just had it up here just a second ago.
Gallman and Gallman always brings it.
They
You
had
know, you
81.
gotta.
They had 81 net yards. I think he had 127 yards total for the game. Only 11 completions. That's the second lowest in the season for Daniel Jones. I think the worst was 10. I forget who it was against. It was definitely this season. Uh, Listen, third down efficiency, 3rd and 12. Like I
Not
said
good.
earlier at the top of the show, I mean, they look like the team that reverted back to their first 5 weeks of the season to where the
Mm.
offense couldn't get anything going. The defense was keeping the games close, but
The
the offense,
fumble. Oh,
yeah, and Daniel Jones's fumbles. There was, I think he
he almost
fumbled.
lost two more. I mean, there was
He
two more
fumbled.
that easily could have gone back, and
He
it fell right on him. I mean,
right,
that is luck right there
right.
too.
He fumbled 3 total times, lost one. Deion Lewis had one. Colt McCoy had the other. 3 total. Listen, obviously there has to be something the Giants were doing where in the 4-game win streak that got them over the top over their opponents. There's something that they weren't doing in the first 5 weeks where they were 0-5, where the defense was on the field most of the time and the offense just couldn't get anything going. It feels like we went right back to that. Now
Yeah.
I don't know who you blame on this. Is it Jason Garrett? And let me tell you, Jason Garrett is an offensive genius. I think he's a very good offensive coordinator, but some of the play calling, even during the 4-game win streak, is questionable to me
Yeah.
because I don't know if they lack the confidence in Daniel Jones to throw the ball down the field. Maybe it's because the wide receivers can't get any separation, and we've spoken about that many a times. You gotta find a way to get the ball, even if it's 3-step drops. Get the ball to
Yeah, what the
to his,
Steelers do, quick passing
yeah.
game, stuff like that. Yeah, I see like the Ben McAdoo 2015 teams with the quick passing with Eli when he had like a 70. I think that's not a bad idea. You have Gallman's a decent pass catcher. I like Deion Lewis out of the backfield. You got to get Evan Engram involved on end arounds. I think we got to spread teams out and try to get on the edges. Get Golden Tate. Some of these guys in space are yards after catch to get through extra tackles. The wide receivers do a pretty good job of, but they can't get separation down the field. They just don't have the speed and explosiveness, and they can't catch contested catches. So I think there's a lot of limitations on what the offense can execute. You can have a great game plan, but you need to throw a perfect ball on that 3rd and 1. You have to, thread the needle. Like, you have some good throws, but there are some errant throws, and there are some careless passes, and sometimes you got to feel the pressure. So, Garrett can only call the plays that he thinks is going to execute. The object is to win the game. The defense is executing on all cylinders, in my opinion, and we'll get to the defense. And to win a football game, you got to have special teams. They've been kind of a little bit shaky as well, but the offense has just been really the struggle in it. Colt McCoy is a guy that's going to go in and not make mistakes for you but keep it very simple. You have to have a different game plan for Daniel Jones than that. And if Daniel Jones, like we said, the Giants will be effective with Daniel Jones as a runner. I don't see Daniel Jones with what he's been doing, in his tenure with the Giants is going to be able to throw 30. He's not ready to do what Jared Goff can do or Matt Ryan can do, or he's not at that kind of a level yet. And they're not going to be able to score a lot of points. And that's, it's very hard. Like we've seen, like, look at, even Baltimore, they're hitting the skids a little bit. They dominated last year with that running quarterback type of zone reads and they lit the league on fire. But come playoff time, I don't know. I mean, are the Ravens going to be like a really deep threat? I don't think so. So this type of football, I don't know. That's the only way we can win games right now is if Jones is running the football, 9 to 10 times for 80 yards, getting second and shorts. But wow, that's kind of scary. If he can't do that, we might not score at all. I mean, against the Browns. I mean, the Browns they're ferocious and they're good at all positions.
Well, now you're pretty much going back to an Eli Manning type offense where Eli Manning has to drop back 3, 5, 7 steps and look for an open receiver because he's not going to run. And the thing is Daniel Jones can, but he can't if he's not 100% healthy. But we spoke about the wide receivers and their ineffectiveness and their lack of separation skills. But the thing too there is the fact that um, the offensive line, who we spoke very briefly about the last couple of weeks, have done a lot better, and they
Mm,
weren't very good yesterday. They have to give Daniel Jones the time to
sure.
scan the field, and obviously Daniel Jones isn't having that time.
Right.
Now, we talk about how the receivers aren't getting separation on the corners or the defenders, and whatever the case may be. But do you think that if the Giants' offensive line gave Daniel
It was
Jones
a bad
more
game.
time,
Yeah.
do
Of
you
course I
do
would.
you think he would find? Do you think those wide receivers would be able to find the
I
open
think a little bit
space?
more. I would say a little bit more. So like we talked about during the game, a complete breakdown on the entire offensive side of the ball. I'm talking receivers not getting open, quarterback making bad decisions. Protection on the offensive line was not great. The tight ends weren't covering anybody. When you're a linebacker on the other team gets 5 sacks, that means your tight ends aren't blocking. That means there is significant. I mean, Marcus Golden went right around. Daniel Jones almost got his head taken off twice, and Andrew Thomas, he was one of the highest rated tackles in the NFL the last 3 weeks. He had a terrible game. He had a bad game. You know what sucks is that this is a young, very very young offensive line for the most part. You got some veterans being mixed in. I just think you got to tip your hat to the Cardinals because they studied exactly what Seattle was doing and they were able to make some adjustments. They got their safeties in on a lot of blitzes. They were able to do a lot of things that Seattle really wasn't able to do. And they were able to cover our guys better. So they weren't, getting those third downs. And the Cardinals came in and they executed. And they made very important tackles. They covered well. They sacked the hell out of Jones. They caused turnovers. I'm very surprised by the offensive line performance. Giancarlo, I think the offensive line is going to get better. I think that was a bad game. Now, if we see another game like this, that's very, very concerning. But something tells me that it was just a very bad day all around for Jason
Right from
Garrett's
the
offense.
right from the get
Yeah.
go, right from the very first drive of the game where Daniel Jones fumbles, Marcus Golden takes it to the 9.
But he got
I mean
blindsided. I don't
the
know. He was running full speed into Jones. I mean, that was insane.
listen, the defense did their part in not allowing the
Yeah.
Cardinals to score on that drive after the fumble and the recovery, being that they only needed 9 yards to score. That was great. But right from the start of the game, there was just you could just sense that the Giants hadn't shown up for this game. I mean,
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. Just, I think, what is interesting? I think when Daniel Jones got absolutely tall, now the Giants were moving the ball down the field that first drive. They were getting the midfield. Oh my God, that just took the wind out of the sails. That was a gut punch. But the Giants defense to only be down 13-0 at half. They were in the red zone on every drive almost. The Cardinals, the Giants. I honestly cannot put this on the defense because Arizona is one of the most high-powered offenses in the league. And they score a lot of points. And the fact that we can hold, the offense was hurting us for a lot of the game. The defense, if they had regular rest, if they could rotate more of the other guys in, I think the defense could hold these guys a lot less. But, I think the defense on the Giants, they play a lot of guys that typically would play special teams. And we also talked about that too, is that when you have Carter Coughlin and, Darnay Holmes, who wasn't in this game, but and other really good rookies that we have, who do we have left on special teams? Those were supposed to be some special teams contributors. If you're playing a lot of these rookies, to get a lot of snaps, that's great development, I guess, for them. But then there seems to be something weird going on with special teams because the last 3 weeks you were saying they've let up returns, they've let up,
those
bad.
guys like Coughlin and Mayo and who's that other kid that
Cam Brown, Tay Crowder,
exactly. Now these guys were on special teams almost every down, every time they were out there. Now all of a sudden you're starting to see that they're not out there. So is there something that's going on here where Joe Judge might be using them more on defense and not allowing them to play on special
It's
teams.
possible.
Whatever the case may be, special teams has looked sluggish as of late.
Sluggish. You could have some tired guys from the defensive side of the ball too. The Giants have had to use a lot of depth guys. The Giants play a lot of guys, but this is Judge's style. And you know what? I don't hate it because everybody's prepared to execute, on offense and defense. But special teams, wow. I mean, this has been. I mean, we can go back a few weeks ago. That against the Bengals, that was a bad performance. A shoestring tackle saved the return for a touchdown in that game. And then you've just had returns for big chunk yardages, the past several weeks. And the same thing yesterday too. And we're not pinning teams deep. Like, it's just been really poor execution on special teams. But I think what you said is true. I mean, he's playing a lot of guys and a lot of rookies. But yeah, we got to tighten up on special teams. That's definitely. I mean, obviously the offense is by far the biggest headache. But yeah, special teams, we can't be letting us down. We need every single point we can get. We can't give field position. We need to give our defense good field position so they can make plays, try to be aggressive, jump routes, create turnovers. You don't want them on their heels, because then they can't be as aggressive. And the Giants are good when they're aggressive. So that's got a lot to do with that too.
159 total yards in the game tells you everything you need to know as far as how much time the defense was out on the field. Listen, the defense can only do so much, and they've done very well without a doubt. Leonard Williams has been phenomenal. I mean, this guy is probably going to get a big contract, hopefully from the Giants, to stay in New York for quite some time because he's obviously proving that he is as good as everybody thought he was when he was with the New York Jets. And he's making what's his face look really good by making this trade. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the defense played great. Jabril Peppers is making big tackles. He's having another strong game for him. James Bradbury. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, you got to give Arizona credit. They moved him around. Even though DK Metcalf is a freak of nature, big guy, can stiff arm people to the ground, DeAndre Hopkins is a little bit more of a slicker, fast twitch guy, and he made a lot of big plays. But we kept him out of the end zone. Kyler Murray, there was a lot of times, Giancarlo, when we're only rushing 3 and 4, and we kept him in check. And there were really good moments that I saw from this Giants defense. So all in all, an impressive performance. But when you are bad on special teams and your offense puts you in harm's way, it's really tough to ask the defense on a short field over and over and over again to hold them to 3 points.
And I'm glad you bring that up because that was going to be my next thing. Why were the Giants only rushing 3 and sometimes only 4 guys?
So the key with Kyler and Russell Wilson is where I would think Patrick Graham
How many
is doing
times? Wait. How many times did we sack Russell Wilson?
8, 5.
It was more. It was more than 1.
It was a good amount.
It was a good amount. Why wouldn't the Giants defense have the same game plan for Kyler Murray?
I think they did have. So when I was watching it, I think they did bring concentrated pressure, and they got a good amount with 4. But I think as the game wore on, I just think they were so fucking tired that they just gassed out. Like it's demoralizing. I think they did as good as they could. Costly turnovers. When you're always inside the territory, you can't play aggressive. You can't jump routes. You can't try to strip the ball. You got to tackle, make sure they don't get to the 36 for another field goal.
Giants had 4 sacks against Wilson last week.
That's good. Kyler Murray is a very elusive, but you got to keep
fast. I understand.
You got to keep him in the pocket.
Exactly.
You got to contain. So that's going to hurt your pressures. The Giants did very well with zone last week. They'll try to do the same.
But the point I was trying to get to is the fact that they were only rushing 3 or 4 guys. But what that's telling me is you're playing back and you're playing so that Kyler Murray doesn't beat you with his arm. Meanwhile, he's going to beat you with his legs. You give him that much room, he's going to take off and run. I mean, with
Yeah.
a three or four man rush, he can run all day.
Yeah. So it's a tough call. I mean, there was a lot of really good defensive stands and good defensive sequences for the Giants. Giants were able to, get a lot of punts and get possessions, but they did nothing with it. They were never able to do anything. And the costly field position, I think the style of play, I can't put that much on the defense. They've been so solid all year long. I can't criticize the play calling of the defense. I mean, if your team is getting 50 yards of offense in the first half and you're only down 13-0, I don't know. I mean, Holmes wasn't in, but the Giants know that they need to cover D-Hop. They need to make sure Bradbury's on him. They might have to get him double covered. They might have to. I think they did a good job at stopping the run in general. Could you have blitzed more? I guess, but Patrick Graham has done a good job of, disguising the blitzes. And I also say that they didn't get the penetration. I think the offensive line of the Cardinals played one of their best games of the season because they've had a very bad season and we're a very good defense. And, they had they outplayed us. I think Arizona was playing for their playoff life. And as if every single snap depended on it. I'm not saying we didn't try, but that was a desperate team we played. And after a big, huge win last week, it's just human nature. You could have had a little letdown, a little bit of a letdown by the offensive line, who was doing their best last week to help Gallman out. So just growing pains, just a poor. I think the offense that just permeated to the rest of the team.
You obviously saw the desperation in the Arizona Cardinals coming into this week.
They were. Yep.
Because they had lost 3 games in a row, and they were looking to win to stay in the playoff picture, and they were the hungrier team. They obviously did their job and got the job done. They move a game over 500, I think it is, right?
I think so. But the thing with Arizona is they also got the 2 games before that they had a Hail Mary. If that Hail Mary at the end of the game doesn't go, they'll lose 5 in a row. So this team was on a very tough skid. And they didn't look really good, and they had to have it. And Daniel Jones, I think, boy, I mean, that we cannot see a Daniel Jones not running the football, because if we can't run that ball, keep that defense fresh and hungry and angry, like junkyard dogs wanting to come out and kill somebody, it's not a recipe for success now.
Let me ask you this. Knowing that Daniel Jones isn't 100%, and he may have been, he may not have been, whatever the case is. If you're Joe Judge, do you think you have a better chance of winning with Daniel Jones at 75-80%, or do you think you have a better chance of winning with Colt McCoy at 100%?
That's such a tough question to ask. Colt McCoy. I mean, the Giants ran the football with Alfred Morris. They imposed their will. McCoy made a couple of plays, didn't kill you. I mean, Daniel Jones, to me, can make all of the throws. With Daniel Jones, it's not the physical ability or the talent. It isn't even the confidence. I think he's a little too confident and a little too much. I think he needs to have parameters in a game plan. So here's how I think he could be successful. First of all, if he's healthy, if he's 100% healthy, you got to run him early. Show the other team that there's a threat to run. Because if you need to show the other team you can break one off. All right. And even if at 80%, you can still, instead of gaining 8 yards, maybe gain 5. You need to make sure the defense is bringing guys back, in that zone or spying on the quarterback. If that's the only way. If he can execute that kind of a game plan and he can't check out as much as he is, if he stays stricter to the game plan from Jason Garrett, maybe let Jason Garrett call the plays and say, listen, this is the play. You audible only when I give you the green light. If we see something in the defense on the sideline, maybe you're getting hot, I'll let you call. But you can't just give him carte blanche. All right, Daniel Jones, you can't do it. So as long as there's a game plan that he can execute, I still think that Daniel Jones gives you a better chance because he still has that ability with his legs to make plays. I think McCoy, he's a guy that is just too limited. I mean, there's just not a lot you can ask him to do other than handing it off and the occasional play. You know what I mean? And I don't know.
A lot of people calling the fan today all complained about, oh, well, if Daniel Jones wasn't 100%, why did he play? Why did he start? It should have been Colt McCoy. Listen, I would take Daniel Jones at 75%, 80% over Colt McCoy. Only because if our backup quarterback was anybody other than Colt McCoy,
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, name a guy.
Marcus Mariota.
Thank you. I would have been okay.
Yeah.
I would have been okay with that. But Colt
Yeah.
McCoy, who has 26 NFL starts in his career,
Yeah.
not your prototypical backup guy. I mean, he's a good third string guy. I mean, the way I look at it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Listen, they had an opportunity to sign someone else in the offseason. What's his face from Kansas City? I think it was Matt something.
So, yeah, could Matt Moore?
Matt Moore, I think it was.
Yeah, so he's decent. There's a lot of good backups out there. Matt Moore, how about, I like Marcus Mariota because they do a lot of zone reads. I think for next year, it's very reasonable. I think the Giants have to sign a competitive backup just to nip at his heels a little bit. I think Daniel Jones right now, maybe like a Foles to a Trubisky. Here's an interesting one. Carson Wentz, if he's out there, if the Eagles let go of him, and I can get him for a reasonable price, I'd probably take him. I mean, you need to find somebody who can nip at his heels and make him confident, like, hey, I can lose my job. I think Daniel Jones, he thinks that this is his job forever, and he needs to be careful because this Giants defense is big time. They can really play, and we need to score points. And Joe Judge doesn't seem like the guy that's going to wait. I mean, he says all the right things, but we don't know Joe Judge. He could easily bring in another quarterback next year. I mean, easily. If we need to go from 6-10 or 5-11 to improve, he's going to do that. I don't think he's going to draft a quarterback. I don't think we're going to have high of a pick. Maybe we will. I doubt it. But he's going to consider. If the Giants don't draft a QB, which we both think is probably not happening with that equity. I think they're going to go with a pass rush. They have to upgrade at the backup. They have to get a good backup that can be ready to go and make some starts.
Well, I think Colt McCoy was the pick for the Giants and Dave Gettleman this season because, I don't know, maybe it was a cap issue. Maybe they didn't have enough money to sign.
Probably the cap issue. I would say that.
I think in the end, I think Matt Moore just wanted to go back to Kansas City, I think it was. But either way, you have to get better at the backup position. And listen, we were spoiled with Eli Manning. How many years did he play in the league? 16 years, 17 years?
That was,
listen, he never missed a game due to an injury. Am I right?
And that's another thing too. Daniel Jones does get banged up.
Yeah, that's becoming an issue for me. That's becoming an issue for me. And if you're going to be a quarterback, that's going to be constantly, my hamstring or my shoulder or my elbow or whatever the case is. Listen, get out there, shut up, and play. Unless you can only get out there in a wheelchair, then you should be out there.
I agree. I think they're treating Daniel Jones a little bit, but look, here's the thing. He needs to be a runner, and I don't know if Joe Judge wants to run an offense like that. Jason Garrett, I think he does have a little bit more of that tenure in the NFL, so he probably should take the play calls and really be strict with Jones on what he could audible. And I think he has to make that step. I would be shocked if Judge didn't mention that to him.
I definitely expected a lot more out of this offense with Jason Garrett as the offensive coordinator. That's no I mean.
But Jones hasn't executed. Yeah, I agree with you too. I can agree with that.
All right, let's
not a lot of weapons.
We've covered a lot of the things about what helped the Giants lose this game against the Cardinals. Now let's look at the standings. I mean, the Giants now fall a game back of the Washington team.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Both Dallas and Philadelphia both won yesterday. So now this division once again is getting a bit tight with 3 games to go. The Washington team, I think, has an easier schedule than the Giants do. The Giants still do have that tiebreaker, being that they swept the season series from the Washington team.
That's right.
Now,
that's right.
We've got a home game against the Browns this coming week. Then we go on the road to play the Ravens, and then we got the home finale against the Cowboys. What are we looking at here?
None of those games are gimme games.
No,
Not
they're
one.
not.
And we'll get to the Washington team in a minute because their schedule looks a little bit more palatable. The Cleveland Browns, they're playing right now. I think the last time I checked, they were up on the Ravens.
They're down. They're down 14-7.
14-7. The Browns are a very good football team because they can rush the quarterback. They tackle really well. They're a really big-time good defense. And that scares me because the Giants are not making any explosive plays. The Browns are going to give the Giants a hard time. I think the Giants' defense is going to have a big game. I think they're going to have a bounce-back game. I like that. We talked about this many weeks ago. We were worried about Kyler and some of these mobile quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield can move around, but he is not nearly as lethal of gaining those annoying extra yards on second down and 11, or, they can convert on a third and long running. I don't see Baker having that impact. So I do like the Giants on the secondary able to cover their receivers. Besides Landry, they don't scare me. They don't have Odell. They don't have a big-time guy. I think the Giants are going to hold Cleveland to a low number of points. Now, with that being said, they do run the ball a lot, and they can beat us up. I don't know how good Baker's going to be. He's played better of late, but he doesn't scare me. I think the Giants can hold their own on defense. But what scares me is the Giants' offense because they have not been able to get anything going. And the Browns' defense with Myles Garrett and their pass rush on the interior is very good. They cover really well, and we don't have good weapons. So in order for us to win this game, Jones has to be effective as a runner, as a threat to run. We have to go horizontal, quick passing, and we need to pound the football up the middle and the occasional deep shot. And we have to keep the ball out of Daniel Jones's hands and more in Jason Garrett's hands. But this is going to be a very tough football game against the Browns. There's
no doubt they got two really good rushers in Hunt and
Nick Chubb. Yep.
You're gonna have to put a lot of people in the box. You're gonna stop the run and then try and give what's his face an opportunity to beat you.
Giants have to win a low-scoring game. It's got to be like the Seahawks game. I think the Giants' defense is that good. I think we can pull it off. I think the offense of Arizona, I think, scares you schematically more with Kyler Murray at quarterback than the Browns probably do with this Giants defense. I don't see, the Browns really taking it to us drive after drive. I mean, they're going to have their moments, but the Giants are a pretty good defense. But if we can't score, we have to score 21 points at least. We got to score something. We got to score 24 points to win this game.
Well, we missed Blake Martinez this week. We're definitely going to. I don't know if he's going to be available come Sunday against the Browns.
Fackrell's already out.
So things aren't looking up. I mean, in order to win this game against the Cleveland Browns, obviously you're not going to stop the run. You have to at least slow it down.
Yeah.
And you can't let Mayfield beat you down the field. If you apply the pressure on Mayfield, he's going to make mistakes, and he's made them before.
Yes.
So
gotta get that pressure.
Got to get that pressure on Mayfield.
I think Patrick Graham, it's going to be a big bounce-back game for him. You got to get Jabril Peppers involved in the pass rush. He wasn't really a factor. I think you can use him in a lot of different positions, but rush up Peppers more, get him involved. I think our tackling is pretty sound. Leonard Williams has always played well. We have to make sure I definitely expect some more blitzes and more aggressive. Plus, you're 5-8. You got to be more aggressive. You can't sit back. You're 5-8. I think an aggressive game plan is going to be very big for us. We have to make sure that we don't let them get in the red zone, because if we keep them the field goals, we don't want those two backs sniffing the end zone. We want them away from the end zone, make them earn those yards. We have a shot if we keep this low scoring. If we can make this game like 21-14, or if we can keep it maybe even 13-7, that's the type of ugly game that I think we could win. But can you tell me anything that you've seen from last game to give you encouragement that we're going to put up 24 points? Because I don't see it. I see the only way we win this game if it's a very low scoring, ugly. Hopefully it snows. I don't know, but it's not going to. We need a lot of things to roll our way to have an advantage in this game, and that's not really a sign you want to see.
If the Giants are reverting back to how they were playing when they were 0-5, that's scary. With 3 games to go and the Washington team with a game lead in the division, that is not good news for me. I'm looking at the schedule right now. The Washington team have the Seahawks,
Panthers, Eagles,
the Panthers, and the Eagles. The Giants, obviously, we already determined that they've got the Browns at home, the Ravens on the road, and then the Cowboys for the season finale at home at MetLife Stadium. Listen, they hold a tiebreaker, so I've got
but they gotta go. Giants gotta go 2-1.
Yeah,
they can't go 1-2. If you go 1-2, you're 6-10. Right now, Washington hasn't.
The way I look at it is the Giants have to win out the season. It's the only way you're going to get into playoffs, and you got to hope that hope that the Washington team loses one of those 3 games, because the way they're playing right now, and I don't know what the status on Alex Smith is. I know he's got a calf injury.
That's a big.
And it's on the leg where he had surgery, so I'm not really sure what exactly is going to happen with the Washington team come Sunday with Alex Smith. There's a good possibility that Haskins might start that game. If that's the case, I'm feeling good about that.
Seattle's going to beat Washington, right? I mean, I think it's safe to say Seattle. I think offensively, I think it's going to be. Is it possible that Washington with Alex Smith healthy could scrape out a win? I guess it's possible because the Giants did it, but I don't think just because the Giants did it that now Washington does. I think Seattle is going to make adjustments, and they should take care of business in this game.
I think without a doubt that if Alex Smith starts for Washington, there's a good chance that they might score they might score just as many points as Seattle. They'll keep up with them on the scoreboard. They may not win it, but they'll keep up with them on the scoreboard, because I think Washington, against a poor defense like Seattle's, they can possibly score a lot of points.
I think so. I think with that tight end Logan Thomas, I like that matchup over the middle because, other than Bobby Wagner, they're really struggling in coverage. So I think Washington does play a very physical football game. They can keep it close. I do like Russell Wilson to make those extra plays down the field. And I don't think there's enough explosiveness yet, because remember, if Alex Smith is not 100%, I don't trust Dwayne Haskins to go and beat these Seattle Seahawks. I don't think that's going to happen. So now if Alex Smith, that's an interesting game. I'm going to give that one to Seattle. I'm going to give that one to, but Carolina is a matchup where I think Washington's going to be favored, and I think they're going to be favored against the Eagles too. So just according to being favored, Washington right now at this juncture should go 2-1. That puts them at 8-8 on the season. They're getting in. Giants have to run the table to go 8-8, and I don't see that happening. I don't see Washington losing 2 or 3, but that's possible if Haskins is quarterback.
Well, if that's the case, then the Giants have to win out the rest of the season to go to 8-8 and finish.
Giants can go 2-1, and Washington can go 1-2, and they could also get in. That would mean they'd have to win this week at Browns and then split the next 2. And
but you don't necessarily have to get a better record than Washington, because if you finish, because we have the tiebreaker. So even if we both finish at 7-9, the Giants are getting in by sweeping the season series.
Yeah, but Washington is not going to. You think Washington? If Dwayne Haskins is their starting quarterback, it's possible that Washington can get knocked off the next 2 weeks. I think, or maybe Philly with Jalen Hurts. This is a whole nother ball game because they just beat the Saints, and that is very unexpected. Now the Saints don't have Drew Brees in this game. They still put up 21 points, but Jalen Hurts created a little bit of a spark, and we always said we like the Eagles' talent. They still have a good defense, and so who knows? I mean, the Eagles is not a gimme game for Washington either, because the Philly could be a much better team. Now maybe Jalen Hurts has a flash in the pan. Who knows? Taysom Hill, not the real Saints. But the Saints have a big-time defense, the best defense in the league, and the Eagles were running the football all over them. And with Miles Sanders, so maybe this kickstarts the Eagles. Maybe the Eagles knock off Washington. Maybe that's not a gimme game that everyone said a few weeks ago. Carolina is a physical football team. So is Washington. They play very similar styles. That could be a tough game as well. So there's no gimme games for all the teams. So I just don't – just because Washington beats Pittsburgh Steelers, they knocked off the Niners with Nick Mullins, by the way. Mullins sucks. All right, let's be real. Mullins is not a good QB. So maybe Washington doesn't have a great record. So division is still wide open. What concerns me, though, is that the Washington has Alex Smith, which is a steady quarterback, which is not going to kill you. He's going to get his plays. He's going to make good decisions.
He's not going to make any mistakes.
Exactly. That's the problem. That's the key, is Daniel Jones staying within a game plan as a runner, getting second and manageable, letting these guys get open a little bit, and then wearing the other team down and not making mistakes. And I think Washington does a better job of that consistently on offense. Doesn't mean they're going to win the rest of these games, but the Giants, that's their only chance for success, is if they don't turn it over, ugly football, run the football. And that's hard. This could be – I mean, this is a big game we got coming up. Very big game. But it's not over.
We're definitely not going to know for sure. We'll probably know by at least Thursday or Friday if Daniel Jones is going to start on Sunday against the Browns. If he doesn't, I'm not going to be feeling very good about this game at all.
No.
With Colt McCoy under center.
No,
listen,
I don't like that
did he win the game against Seattle? Absolutely not.
No.
The run game did their thing. The defense was phenomenal. Giants win the game. It was
Pete Carroll got outcoached, flat out outcoached that game, and that doesn't happen very often. And you got Arizona, probably outcoached us a little bit, especially against our offense last game.
Colt McCoy was a non-factor in that game. I'm sorry, I don't care what anybody says. So, I mean, a lot of Giants fans are saying, well, Colt McCoy should start Sunday against the Browns.
I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that either because, like I said earlier, I'd rather go with an 80-85%, Daniel Jones than a Colt McCoy who, again, 26 career starts, really doesn't really do it for me.
No, I know. How about this? And this is what we talked about earlier about that's why it's so important, and I think that this is almost a certainty that there will be a more competitive backup quarterback next year, unless if Jones really flakes out the rest of the year, just really performs poorly, Colt McCoy might be brought in. And if that happens, that quarterback is going to be on the mind in the draft. That's going to change a lot of where the dominoes fall. Now, it all depends on Jones's injury. If Daniel Jones cannot play 100% Daniel Jones, do you trot him out there to see what he's got, or do you go to Colt McCoy who, he's not going to kill you, but he's going to dink and dunk and he's going to hand the ball off? I mean, which direction do you go? Because you want to be in the playoffs this year, but this is also Daniel Jones' development, and he's Gettleman's baby too. And, some of Gettleman's guys are performing, but some aren't. We don't have Saquon. We don't have everybody healthy, right? So there's a lot of things that go against the offense right now, but Daniel Jones, I think, has to be put in a position to be successful. You can't think too much long-term, and that means him being a runner. And if he can't do that, maybe you do sit him, but you have to sit him for the right reasons and start him for the right reasons. So those are things that they're going to have to wrestle with. But we cannot have a performance like last week. If Daniel Jones fumbles the football, turns it over, makes poor decisions with his audibles, it is possible they could bring in Colt McCoy, I think.
Well,
I think it is possible.
We can definitely agree that there are multiple things that the Giants have to do against the Browns. One, can't turn it over. Two, they have to keep the defense off the field. They have to do a better job of keeping drives going. Third and one and lobbing the ball up 20 yards down the field isn't going to do it for me. That's just not going to get it done. All you needed to do is just hand the ball off and just try to get a first down. And if you don't get it on third down, you still have fourth down to do it on. I mean, that was a game. I think at that point was 20-0, and it was
or it might have been 20-7. It was closer.
Exactly. It was 20-7.
With
there
like
was
10,
no reason.
11 minutes left. There was time left.
There was no reason for that. I mean, the play calling has to be better. They have to put Daniel Jones in a position where he's going to succeed. They got to get the running game going because the running game sets up the passing game. We know this. More play action passes. I mean, rollouts to the right. Make Daniel Jones throw from his right side, not roll over to the left where he's a bit weaker. You got to put him in situations where he's going to succeed. If he can't run the ball, then you got to roll him out. You can't keep him in the pocket because you keep him in the pocket, he's going to get hit. Okay, we don't need him to get sacked 8 times a game. It just uncalled for.
Well, the offensive line, I anticipate Dave Guglielmo, who has done a nice job since he's come in. It's not just Garrett, it's Jones. There was poor protections. I mean, Andrew Thomas had a very rough game.
He allowed 3 sacks, I think.
3 sacks. He's a rookie. We have to remember he is a rookie. He's going to have these moments. He was one of the highest rated tackles the last 3 weeks to Pro Football Focus. And, to have that kind of performance is very tough. I think he's going to bounce back. I think we have to establish the run early on. Jones needs to be a factor running the football. I like our defense. Here's another thing, too. You don't have to score every possession. You don't have to get field goals. When the Giants were winning with the running game, the Giants would make it to midfield, make it to the other team's 40. So even if they don't go for it on 4th and miss it, or even if they don't get a field goal, they're pinning the other team back and getting their field position so that our defense, which is the strength of this team, can start to be aggressive, can try to get turnovers, can try to get interceptions because you're pinning that team back and they have to gain yardage. That's where our defense plays our best.
Yeah, but that's also where special teams comes in. And special teams made their first turnover this year with Deion Jones fumbled on that. What was it? The punt? I think
what was interesting about that play? It looked like the guy kicked it out of his gut, didn't it? I mean, wasn't that a kick? It looked very strange to me.
I didn't see the play, so
the play was. If you look up the play, it's very interesting. I was watching it, and it looked like one of those plays, like a wily veteran move where he gets kind of hit to the side and his leg just so happens to be in that area. He kind of kicked the ball out. That was an interesting play. I'm not sure the ruling on that, but that was very, very strange. Still a turnover, can't have it. A lot of drops.
Well, special teams has to be on the mark because
they have to.
Listen, field position was not very good against the Cardinals. Starting on your own 18-yard line is not very good. There was another play.
You're not going to win that way.
There was another play on special teams where there was a punt and Jabril Peppers fair caught it on the 5-yard line. Now, Football 101 says if that ball is inside the 10-yard line, let that thing bounce into the end zone. Start at your 20.
Yeah, he's trying to make a play at a time in the game. That just tells me right there that the offensive game plan went off the rails, and a captain, Jabril Peppers, who brings it every day, is trying to make something out of it and is trying to make sure, maybe he wanted to make a play, maybe he didn't.
Yeah,
I just think it was one of those things.
That was definitely a bad decision on his part. He should have just let that ball roll into the end zone and start at the 20 instead of the 5.
Yeah,
because that just killed the drive. I mean, what
sure did.
I think they went 3 and out on that. I think they went 3 and out on that. But either way,
that's a bad decision. But you know what, Peppers, he brings it every game. He's a leader of this defense. Things aren't going right. That is magnified. If the Giants are moving the football down the field and scoring points, nobody even talks about Jabril Peppers fair catching that ball. These are the things that you notice in games when your offense is literally doing nothing. You can't have 50 yards out of the first half, Giancarlo. We got to run this ball early.
No shit.
Keep our defense off the field. Even if we go 5-6 minutes on the first drive, only get a field goal, maybe pin them deep, that's a victory. We cannot have this defense constantly on the field. I don't know. The Browns are not as explosive. Their defense is probably a little bit better, but the Browns do have Browns tendencies at times. Okay, they've gotten blown out this year a few games. So is Arizona in fairness, but the Browns, maybe they bring their Browns game. Let's see how they do tonight. I mean, this is a big game for them. Maybe if they beat the Ravens tonight and have an emotional win, maybe they do let it down a little bit. Maybe we do have a chance to kind of sneak in. But if the Browns, they're tied in this game right now, maybe they maybe they lose this game and then they really want to blow the doors off of us. So this game has a lot to do with it psychologically, how they come in and play. Because when Daniel Jones is running the ball, pre-hamstring, very similar type of offense to what Baltimore was doing effectively. So, Daniel Jones we got to check out this hamstring. I don't know what the status is going to be, but
this was the first time in Daniel Jones' career where he didn't have a rushing attempt in a game.
That tells you, that screams that he's not healthy. Screams it. And you got to know that the Browns are going to know that too. Because without Daniel Jones being a threat as a runner, this is scary how you can't score points. There's got to be some sort of change. I think that starts, like we alluded to earlier, you got to have a veteran that can come in and knock it on the door, because Jones has to convert on these plays, man.
Here's an interesting stat. So Jones was sacked 6 times yesterday against the Cardinals, which ties the second highest total of his career. Jones's highest total was 8 sacks, also against the Cardinals. And that was last year, October 20th, 2019.
There's something schematically that the Cardinals are doing on our matchups, and they have our number. It happens against some teams. I mean, even if you look at Patrick Mahomes, when he went to Miami gives him fits. When he goes to Miami, they just have his number. So there's always going to be those types of intriguing matchups in the league where one team just has a specific advantage over another. That being said, you gotta make rotation on the offensive line. You can't let your quarterback take those kind of hits. But the Giants are compounding mistakes on offense. But it all starts with the root of the tree on offense is running the ball, not being afraid to run it first, second, and third down, and getting second and short to where that's when you take your shots downfield. And because our wide receivers, you can't just line up 3 wide and expect Daniel Jones to dink and dunk like a Tom Brady type of offense in New England. That's not going to happen. Our guys don't get that separation.
Yeah, but without a doubt, all 3 aspects of the Giants' game, whether it was offense, defense, or special teams, all had a say in that loss yesterday. There's no doubt. It wasn't just the offense. It wasn't just the defense, or it wasn't just the special teams. It was all 3 aspects of the game that really, led to this Giants loss against the Cardinals yesterday. Listen,
Jason Garrett has to call a better game. He's got to be on the hot seat if we can't score points, right? I mean,
can't go 2 weeks in a row without scoring points in the first half.
Can't go 3 weeks at this stretch. Can't do it.
Can't do it. Not against
Got to
the
figure it
Browns.
out.
How many times have the Giants been able to come back from a 13 or 14 point deficit this season?
We're not that kind of football team.
Exactly.
We give up leads. We've done that this year, but we're not at that level of an offense where, all right, we're down 14. Let's make a couple tweaks. We're good to go. We need a very specific line path. And I think I think a lot of teams kind of know this. And that scares me too, because we have to have tricks in the bag. We need more trick plays, whether that's end arounds. You got to get Engram on the edge. You got to get Sterling Shepard, Tate on an end around. We got to get involved. And a lot of that is off of the running game, but we need to move things around. Maybe have people in motion at the line of scrimmage, making the other team's defensive coverage. We got to tip the coverages too. I don't think Daniel Jones is reading the coverages really well. And I think that when that ball is snapped, I mean, there's guys coming wide open free. We need to limit those at all. We can't turn it over next week, man. We cannot turn it over.
It's definitely a combination of all those things. And I agree. You can't turn the ball over. You can't turn the ball over 3 times and not get one back. It's just not going to help the New York Giants. It's not going to help Daniel Jones, and it's sure not going to help Jason Garrett.
I think defensively, we can make some ground on Baker. I think that we can maybe get an interception, maybe a fumble. I like our chances. The way that Baker Mayfield plays and the way that our defense is coaching plays, the way that Graham likes to move guys back, the fact that we don't have to use Kyler, I really like our aggressive nature as a defense on trying to make plays. I think we can make some plays next week. Baker Mayfield is very capable of having a bad game where he throws 2-3 picks. It's possible. The Giants is the type of defense that could do it. We need our defense to have a couple of impactful turnovers to get points. If we do that, we got a shot.
One of the best games they played defensively was last week against Seattle. Hands down. 4 sacks of Russell Wilson. They held him under 20 points. Listen, that's the way they're going to have to play the rest of the way. They're going to have to put a lot of pressure on the opposing quarterbacks. If they don't, they can just kiss the season goodbye and they could just, forget the playoffs. Cause it's just not going to happen.
But it's very interesting. A lot of people today that Washington's good. Here's the thing about Washington. We got the tiebreaker, which is, ace in the hole. But if they don't have a healthy Alex Smith, there's no guarantee that they're winning these next 3 games either.
Right.
So, and the Eagles, with Jalen Hurts, they could be getting better. They could be on the rise, but, they're far down. Dallas is a little out of reach, but, they could be in a good spot, when they play us. So it's going week to week with the NFC East, man. You gotta, at least Seattle's got to. And they can come back. I think they can win this game. And we just have to go against the Browns. It's not an impossible task, but like we said, run that football, no turnovers, defense making some plays, keeping it low scoring. I think running game is going to give both of our defenses a handful, but I do love our defense to, at least hold these guys a little. In this game is probably 21-17, 21-16, somewhere in that range. That's how we win this football game, I think.
Without a doubt. Listen.
Hope so.
Offense, defense, and special teams got to click. They got to do a better job of time of possession. They got to hold on to that ball a little longer, have the defense on the field less. Special teams has to do a better job. We made multiple mentions of this. There's something not right about the special teams. And we know that Joe Judge comes from a special teams background, and I know he's got to be furious with the special teams the way they're performing in the last few weeks.
Definitely. And it could be because they're rotating so many young players out. So many guys that thought that they were just going to start this year with Joe Judge, he's starting a lot of rookies. He really is loyal to his guys. How about Lalos? How about, Darnay Holmes? He's banged up, but he's playing a lot. Tay Crowder, Mr. Irrelevant, Cam Brown, Carter Coughlin. He's playing his Shane Lemieux. Matt Pert, Thomas is still. This guy is not afraid to play his dudes, and that could be making some guys on special teams depth not as good because normally those rookie players would only be playing special teams, and maybe those guys aren't there. Maybe they are there and they're a little bit more fatigued because they're playing the defensive snaps. Maybe they kind of take their head out of the game because they just made a big play, a big tackle. Is he going to have that same intensity for a special teams role that he's got to suit up for? So it could be a combination of those things. But, yeah, you're totally right. It's been a very strange – not a lot of people are mentioning it that much, but it's been a noticeable weakness on this team. Obviously, the offense is the big weakness right now. But, yeah, we got to tighten up special teams. Got to tighten. We can't give Cleveland a short field with this running attack, just to mash us down low. We got to keep them out of there.
How confident are you that the Giants win this game regardless of who is under center?
I'd give it about I want to be optimistic here. I really do want to be optimistic because as much as I wanted the Giants to beat the Cardinals, I really thought that this might be a tough game for us. Might be a bit of a trapper. Might be a tough game for us. I would give it a 40% chance. I give it a 40% chance.
Were you at all surprised that the Giants lost the way they did against the Cardinals?
I was a little bit, but I think, you know what? I think the way that the positive person I am, I might have put the wool over my eyes and wanted to believe with fairy pixie dust that this was just never going to end. And then you bring in, remember, a second-year quarterback. A lot of mistakes on the offensive line. You got to credit Arizona. Hat tip to them. They came in, they executed on defense, and they just killed us. So the Browns can do Browns things, Giancarlo. We've seen the Browns with very strange performances, not being able to get it done. They're comfortably in a playoff spot. I mean, they might, but if they win tonight at Baltimore, I can see the Giants beating them. If they lose to Baltimore, they're going to not be happy, and they're not going to want to lose to us. So that could play a big factor. Am I surprised at Arizona? Yeah, a little bit. I'm a little bit surprised. You know what I'm surprised of? I'm surprised of we didn't run the football with the tenacity and the commitment that we normally did. That did surprise me. But Daniel Jones not being a threat as a runner, that was kind of a surprise. That was also surprising. His injury not being fully healthy was also a surprise. Yeah.
I was kind of shocked at the way they lost. I mean, comparing the stats between the Cardinals and the Giants was so way off. That's what surprised me. I wasn't surprised that the Giants lost because in the end, reality is the Giants are an under 500 team.
Yeah.
They may have been in first place for that 1 week.
You are what your record says you are.
Exactly. So that's why I'm not too shocked that the Giants lost against the Cardinals. I was kind of expecting a letdown, but I was hoping that letdown would come against either Baltimore or Cleveland and not the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Listen, Washington has put themselves in a pretty good position, especially when they beat the Steelers last week.
The 49ers, I'm really surprised they beat the 49ers. I thought that the 49ers would kind of be physical, tough matchup. It was a pretty close game, but Nick Mullins, that's another thing, man. They don't have a quarterback there either right now.
Though. They're still missing
They're missing a ton of guys. But I really thought San Fran would tough it out and get this game. But Washington, man, that defense is playing at a very high level, and they're playing for this coach. And they just seem that, they're on a really good streak right now. But without Alex Smith healthy, tall task to go into Seattle. And even the last two games, Philadelphia could be a different team and Carolina could be different. I'm surprised that the other NFC East teams won. Obviously, Philadelphia being a shocker. Dallas, they beat Cincy's a bad football team. They beat Cincy. Revenge game for Andy Dalton.
That game is actually in Washington, not Seattle.
See, I mean, there's no fans. It's kind of hard to, in Seattle, there's no fans anyway. But I think Seattle's going to be favored that game. I expect Seattle to win. But what we've seen from the Washington defense, I mean, they're definitely going to be in it. But if Haskins is under center, he's not a good quarterback. I think Jamal Adams is going to eat his lunch if Haskins is still in there.
Yeah,
Alex Smith. Yeah,
I definitely feel a lot better with Haskins in under center for this.
100%. The Washington could go 0-3 with Dwayne Haskins. With Alex Smith, they could go 2-1
or 3-0
or 3-0. It's a very big difference.
That's
different
how well
football team.
That's how well they're playing.
Yep, and Eagles. I don't know what their schedule is. I'm just curious, actually. Because the best they can do is 7-8-1. Before we end the show here, let's just do a hypothetical with the Eagles. I want to get their schedule here. You pull up their schedule by chance?
Yeah,
hold on a second.
Getting it right now. If I can find it.
Hold on, I'm on the site. I had the site loaded. It just backed up. All right, here we go. Eagles. They have. All right, Arizona.
Yep, Dallas.
That's going to be that's going to be an exciting game, Arizona. Very interesting with two quarterbacks that are very mobile. I think Arizona's offense is a little bit crisper right now. I like Arizona at home to probably beat Philly. So, but then Dallas and Washington, those are all tough games for Philly, and they're all division games. I could see Philly maybe going 1-2 or 2-1 at best. So they're not going to be in it. They don't have a chance. They have to go 3-0. And I don't think they're going 3-0 against Washington, Dallas, and Arizona. I don't see that happening. And they have to win all three. So there's no chance that they have it.
Anything can happen. Anything
can happen. The cliche, anything can happen. That is true. Washington has the inside track right now, but we got to watch that injury because our season could ride on Alex Smith or Dwayne Haskins, to be honest. Dwayne Haskins, they could lose 1-2 or go 0-3 even. With Alex Smith, they could go 2-1 or 3-0. The way that they're playing. The Giants need to go 2-1 at minimum. If they lose this game coming up, season's over.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say. This is the season. I expect the Giants to play with a lot of intensity, to be honest with you. Joe Judge, this is his first moment where you can always say season was on the line last week, but this really is on the line. I mean, the season really could be on the line next week. And I think the Giants are going to break. A defense is going to come to play, 100%. I can see the Giants giving up 0 points in the first quarter, shutting them down. But we just have to run the football. No turnovers. Keep it close. Keep it competitive. Try to get, Jones, who knows, man? If Jones can't run the ball, you're asking the defense to do too much, I think. So we're relying on the legs of Daniel Jones or Alex Smith. Hamstrings and calves are going to decide the NFC East. That's what this comes down to. After all this talk we've had, that's what it's going to come down to. Hamstrings and calves is going to come down to it. It's unbelievable.
Yep. And there you have it. Giants.
Thanks for having me on.
One. Yeah, man, dude. Thanks for being on with me tonight. I appreciate your time, man. It's good.
Absolutely.
It's always good talking.
We'll do this again, and Absolutely. We'll do this again, and we got to preview Rangers hockey starting up right around the corner, my man. It's going to be mid-January, 56-game season. A lot of young stars coming up, a lot of excitement. So we got a lot to go over.
I was really hoping that the hockey season would start before the new year, but
yeah,
unfortunately, it's only going to be a 56-game season, huh?
I trust the NHL. They did the bubble fantastic. Great hockey. The teams are ready to go. The level of play was way better than I thought it was going to be. So I anticipate a high-flying, very fast-paced, competitive regular season.
Well,
they're ready to go.
They're planning a realignment. I think they're going to have all seven Canadian
So that's
teams
the thing.
playing.
We'll discuss that. So the divisions are going to be different. I think all Canada is going to be one division, I believe.
Yeah, it is.
Because
you going into Canada, you need to quarantine for 14 days. That's ridiculous. That's why the Raptors of the NBA are going to be playing in Jersey, I think. Not Jersey, in Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion. But yeah, a lot to be excited about for Rangers, and we got to keep our fingers crossed this week. And I'll probably check out the rest of the Browns, do some homework there, and we'll be at it again. We'll be texting each other. They're very nervous on Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday night game, right? It's a night game.
Yeah, they switched it. It's going to be a Sunday night game, 8:20.
Let's see how we do on prime time, baby. This is big. This is big game for Daniel Jones, man. Big game if he could be healthy. So
you know it. Let's go Giants. Jamie,
Let's do it,
thank
baby.
you. I'll talk to you very soon, all right? Take it easy.
You got it. Be easy. Bye.